The economy will have to expand to almost 3 times the present level.
We have allocated 230 billion rand over the next 10 years to achieve the restructuring of the electricity sector.
Madam Speaker, I therefore table the following documents before this House.
Don't worry, folks, it appears 2026 is a good news budget indeed. In a nutshell, Treasury has spared us the pain of universal tax increases, whilst also introducing increases on tax-free thresholds for several investments. The economy, as many continue to celebrate, is turning the corner, so much so that the annual growth projection is now sitting at 1.6%. Specialist journalist Carol Paton gives the finance minister and his team 3 thumbs up out of 5.
Enoch Godongwana has shown remarkable commitment in getting that debt burden to stabilise. He has shown remarkable commitment, and so I give him a 3. But nothing more, because we are still in quite a serious situation, which was created by the ANC government, and we're living with the costs of that.
In our trending topic later in the show, you can now apply for an e-visa to travel to the United Kingdom, but that's just about the only change to this expensive process. And finally, Madiba cooled some KZN tensions with On This Day in South African History, our regular segment, heard later.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
In Roby's Pointless Braai Quiz, any guesses on how many municipal properties in Cape Town are expected to go under the hammer soon? I'll give you the answer at the end of the show.
This is The Lead, and this is the South African Story, with your host, Graeme Robenheimer.
Moving to our top story, of course, it's all things National Budget 2026. We cross now to Parliament, where we find specialist journalist, writer-at-large Carol Paton, who's basically going to break down the budget for us. Carol, it's been tax breaks galore? It's a good news budget, a far fetch from that chaos that we saw 1 year prior.
It was expected. But I think that the things that government has been doing, the reform program and the sort of sticking to their fiscal targets, has really paid off. And so the great news is, the 20 billion rand of tax cuts that were penciled in for this year, not happening. So we're getting our full sort of, inflation relief for our tax brackets, as well as inflation relief for our medical aid credits, as well as several other things that are just going to make life better and easier for the middle class.
Yeah, increased tax-free thresholds as well, I think, is also a critical one. We haven't seen those in a while, right?
Yes, so they finally revised up, if you sell your house, your primary residence, they finally revised up the tax you would pay on that. From a 2 million rand house to a 3 million rand house. So that's very good.
Yeah, a special mention for small business owners is that, and I am one of them, is that, we always get asked, you need to register for VAT if you earn over a million. Now that sort of ceiling has been moved to 2.3 million. Apparently something that's an intervention that's been called for the longest time.
It has been. I mean, so has the upping of the threshold for selling your house. There are many others that have also not been upped for quite some time, like the estate duty. But we're not complaining today.
Economic growth figures come and go. The IMF might say one thing and our government might say another. Where are we sitting for the forecast over the next 3 years? I think this is also really pertinent news. It's 1.6% for the following financial year. Is that right?
Growth is up, which is, I think, the best news of the budget, because that sort of lifts all boats. It's 1.6% this year, which was up from 1.4% last year, 1.8% next year, and then reaching 2% in 2028. So if all of that materializes, this will be the first period of sustained economic growth that beats inflation, that beats population growth for more than a decade. So I think, that is very welcome news. Of course, there's still a long way to go, and we need a much bigger rate of growth to kind of soak up some of our unemployment crisis. But yeah, we've got the potential now to be on the way.
Right. Some other sort of things to be expected. The social wage is still sitting around, I think, the 60% mark. So, the lion's share, in other words, of the budget still goes to health and education, and of course to social grants, which are all getting their sort of nominal increases. The road accident fund levy is going up, sin taxes are going up, so those are the normal sort of tax increases that we sort of see every budget cycle. But let's talk about the things that weren't mentioned. Am I being a bit funny, Carol, by saying I wanted to hear a lot more about Eskom and Eskom restructuring? I wanted to hear a bit more about, all the effort and money governments put into electricity reforms over the last couple of years, because I'm always kind of worried that we might find ourselves with rolling power cuts again.
That was a very strange omission. I do not understand why that was not in the speech, but perhaps because the news isn't very good. And, the unbundling of Eskom, one of the critical blockages has been what happens to the transmission assets. In other words, who owns the national grid? Your power lines and your transformers and all of that, substations. Who owns that? And President Ramaphosa resolved that debate in his State of the Nation speech. And he said, a new company will own that, not Eskom. Now, the issue is for Eskom, those transmission assets are worth a lot of money. They put the price at 100 billion, and they want to be compensated for that 100 billion. There's not a word in the budget around how this is going to be addressed, and I think that is definitely something that investors and bondholders and those sorts of people are going to be asking about.
Yeah, sure. We saw and heard about this in the State of the Nation address, and I found amongst political parties and across political party lines, Carol, that illegal immigration has been a big concern, whatever the party, and this has been sort of like a hot underlying political question. We saw the president speak about some of the measures of securing South Africa's borders, and here we've heard about a little bit more of the nuts and bolts and the financing of it. The finance minister says it's quite a big public-private partnership to speak about changing up and transforming a lot of the border posts with the private sector's help. And we've heard about how thousands of posts need to be filled to do this. What's your take on all of that? I thought it was quite interesting that got a little bit more attention as opposed to, the electricity reforms where we didn't hear an awful lot.
Yeah, I think that I don't, the 990 million, almost $1 billion rand for more personnel on in the Border Management Authority. It's a great allocation because everything has been starved of money. And if you visit our ports of entry, you will see that very, very clearly, that there are long queues and that those ports of entry are understaffed and are in a mess. So that's a good thing. But I don't think it's necessarily just a case of like, well, we're getting on that bandwagon of like keeping people out, and we're joining that team. Yes, we've had open borders. Borders are a real problem. Border immigration, illegal immigration is a real problem, and government does have to do something about it because it's really not fair. What do you get as a citizen if you get the same rights and the same services as someone who comes from another country? Doesn't make sense. So yes, it's partly that, but it's also just you need to improve the movement of goods. Trade has to improve through those border posts for the economy to grow and to prosper. And, in the context of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. The Johannesburg water crisis, I didn't think, and perhaps I was being a little bit naive, but I didn't think that the finance minister would touch on it, but he did. And he points to something that has kind of been on the back of my mind covering local government issues over the years, is that shouldn't the rates that we pay as those living in big cities or in municipal districts, the rates that we pay, so for example, if I'm paying 600 Rand for water every month, shouldn't that money that gets taken into the big kitty for the respective municipality actually go to the line item of ensuring that water infrastructure, for example, gets fixed at the end of the day? So the rates that we pay for services should go to the relevant line item. And here we have the finance minister saying that's something that needs to be aligned in the way that government spends money.
Let me just tell an important story. If you pay an electricity to a municipality, you are not paying an electricity bill outside the bill of the municipality. And if you are paying water, you are not paying outside the water separately. What are the side effects of this? Some effect of this. Johannesburg, they collect about 9 billion rand on water. But because it goes into the main port, what actually comes back into investment into the water, Johannesburg water, is 1 billion rand out of that 9 billion rand. The implications are services. There's no maintenance of the water system. I'm not saying that's the only problem with the water challenge we face. That's one minor problem. If we solve that problem, we can be able to fix leaks and so on. But it won't deal with the fundamental challenge, which is the infrastructure they are dealing with is old. A challenge we need to be discussing as government is how do we deal with that infrastructure.
Carol, it's a crucial point.
Absolutely. He's saying he called that a foundational principle of public finance. And it's absolutely true. So they put an incentive in place to encourage metro councils to do this. So if you actually make sure you allocate your water revenue to the water account and first fix the water before you start paying salaries and doing all sorts of, events and extravaganzas under the mayor's name. You do that first, long before you allocate it anywhere else. And that has not been happening. And he did have a special word for Joburg. Clearly, Joburg is really a major, he said a major problem. Joburg is a major problem. He made the example of Joburg having raising in a year 12 billion rand from water revenue, but only investing 1.3 billion rand back into water infrastructure. Now, clearly that is not tenable. It's led to the 63 billion rand backlog in water infrastructure. So that's not tenable. But another thing that I would just like to draw listeners' attention to is the fact that national government is getting pretty worried about Joburg. So if you live in Joburg, and I'm sure you have been worried for quite a long time, know that at last the cabinet is starting to notice your pain, and they're talking about how they can possibly intervene. As you might know, Graeme, national government doesn't have a constitutional avenue to intervene because that's the province. So that is the big stumbling block here, which Gordon Gwanda said, well, we've got to find a way around this very big stumbling block.
Yeah, I can almost imagine them all sitting in a room and going, hey, I'm worried about this Helen Zille possibly becoming the next mayor of Johannesburg.
Not only that, I think they might be worried about the fact that they don't have water in their taps.
Sure. Of course. I thought, and my ears pricked up for this, the finance minister stopping and going, listen carefully, basically. This is why we need to justify the big investment in Prasa Rail. And that is specifically because of this contract between Gibela and Prasa to ensure that their contract speaks to a certain number of trains that get procured every year. We're talking about billions being put into revitalizing rail infrastructure in South Africa today. And I can't tell you, I mean, if you could just go listen back to Monday's edition of The Lead with Sikanati Manchancha, investigative journalist there, talking about this huge, expansive project to refurbish many of our old yellow and grey Metro Rail trains, but that they continue to left into in the sun to rot, and how much money has been squandered there, and there's sort of allegations abound of bribery, etc. And here we have the finance minister coming out and justifying why we need to continue spending money in getting new rolling stock. What do you make of that? I mean, of course, rail should be the lifeblood of our economy.
It's a really difficult one because I do think that PRASA, the entire, not just the trains, but the entire network, the track and the signalling equipment is all gone, and that has to be restored because rail is the most efficient and least cost way of moving people around. So that has to be restored. What they do about governance at PRASA, I am just praying they aren't to it, because they are putting a lot of money into PRASA to fixing rail infrastructure, which, quite honestly, it has to be done. It absolutely has to be done. But how are they going to protect that money? I really don't know.
Yeah, and then lastly, Carol, I thought this an important point too. Defence is getting more money. Again, speaking of our colleague Sikanati Manchancha, his ears must be burning. He's previously exposed how we have so few of the Air Force's aircraft that are able to take to the skies. We've heard there's a similar sort of breakdown in terms of our overall capability within the Navy. But here the Defence is getting a bit of a better budget after that being bemoaned for the longest time.
Absolutely. I mean, it is an improvement, and I hope it's not just for uniforms, because there was a gazette a while ago saying that they are going to be doing new uniforms, I think, for the Air Force. I'm not sure if it was just for the Air Force, but there are dire needs, as we know. I mean, we've had stories on News 24 about soldiers getting one tin of pilchards and half a loaf of bread to eat in an entire day, and that is not what you expect. And it was quite notable that's not what you expect for the people who serve the country. And it was quite notable that the finance minister was asked, well, where's the extra money? Because now you're going to be sending the troops into the gang-infested areas of the Cape Flats and Nelson Mandela Bay, and you're going to go, going to use them to go and track down the Zama-Zamas. And he said, well, that is in the budget. That is what they get their budget for, is to do these things for the country. So no extra money there. And I am concerned that is going to be a problem, because, when it comes to moving people around and you must accommodate these soldiers, you must feed them. I'm not convinced that plan is watertight.
Right. So let's quickly recap. Tax breaks galore. Good news for small business owners. Eskom doesn't get an awful lot of attention. Hey, we're turning to the private sector to secure our borders. The rates that we pay for services should go to the relevant line item. PRASA continues to get millions upon millions. Defence is getting a little bit of an up in the budget. What does that mean for how many thumbs up Carol gives this year's version of the budget if we look in contrast to last year's? 5 being the most thumbs up, that's a good speech. 0 being, hey, this is another weekend special. How would you rate it?
Well, the problem is that we haven't mentioned this, but we are sitting on 79.8% of debt to GDP ratio. That means everything. If you have to imagine everything the economy produces in a day, everything, what the mines produce, the factories produce, the farms produce, you make in your job, the value you create in your job, all of that. Take all of that and say, well, 80% of that we owe to somebody else. Now, that is a massive debt pile. So that is the big problem. What's good about this budget, and why I'd give it 3 thumbs up, is because Enoch Godongwana has shown remarkable commitment in getting that that debt burden to stabilize. He has shown remarkable commitment. And so I give him a 3, but nothing more, because we are still in quite a serious situation, which was created by the ANC government, and we're living with the costs of that.
Sure. At least he's not a Des Van Rooyen, I suppose, at the end of the day.
Yes.
Carol.
No, it is Van Rooyen.
Carol, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. Thanks for burning the midnight oil with us here on The Lead on News 24. You've been grafting all day long out of Parliament to bring us all the headline news from Budget 2026. We'll chat again soon.
Yeah, look, it does feel like midnight here, because we started work this morning at 5:45. So, I'm looking forward to having the evening free. Thanks, Graeme.
Trending topic.
Moving to our trending topic, you may be excited to hear that it'll be, one may argue, slightly easier to get a visa to travel to the United Kingdom soon, as the UK government, which is currently facing plenty of heat over illegal immigration, moves to a completely online migration system, with applying South Africans soon able to get an e-visa. But as News 24 disinformation desk editor Andrew Thompson reports, don't get your hopes up too quickly, because although from today, payday, the 25th of February, the sticker on your passport will come in digital form, that really is the only material change to the application process for us non-British citizens. Applicants will still have to attend in-person interviews and pay up to 20,000 Rand in fees, depending on which e-visa you're after. All of this will be conducted via an online system, with airline and immigration authorities able to verify your e-visa online. A 6-month visa, for example, will set you back nearly $3,000, whilst a 10-year visa will cost easily upwards of around 22,000 Rand. So in short, this is merely a major cosmetic change, whilst the UK government argues this will streamline a more secure process. One News 24 reader, Intelligent Old Man, writes, well, you still have to travel from out-of-city residences to the visa site. It's very difficult for someone who is even slightly disabled. Why can they not use biometric data from previous visits? I've got 4 tourist visas in my passport. Surely they still have all that data, quote unquote. What say you? Drop us a comment below.
Looking for a smarter weekend scroll? The Weekender is your ultimate guide to bold stories, sharp opinion, and a fresh lens on life in Mzansi. From exclusive interviews and powerful essays to wine picks, playlists, and pop culture gems, it's your perfect weekend read all in one place, landing every Saturday on News 24. And finally,
ending off now with On This Day in South African history, that's the 25th of February 1990. On this very day in that year, just weeks after his release from prison, the late former statesman Nelson Mandela travelled to Durban to help calm escalating violence in KwaZulu-Natal. Addressing a crowd of more than 100,000 ANC supporters, he called on followers to lay down their weapons rather than commit to peace. In this notable gesture, Mandela also praised Inkatha Freedom Party leader, the late Mangosuthu Buthelezi, for his opposition to apartheid, while stressing the need for unity against oppression. The rally marked an early attempt to steer the country away from political bloodshed and towards negotiation. In Roby's Pointless Braai quiz today, any guesses on how many municipal properties in the mother city are expected to go under the hammer soon? That answer is 50. And here's some extra information. The Western Cape High Court has thrown out an urgent application to stop the auction of these properties this week, including the iconic Good Hope Centre, which after a group of activists claimed the city of Cape Town had no lawful right and or ownership of the land upon which that facility finds itself. Now, the sales of all of these auctions, the city insists, will go toward service delivery in the metro. If this was your answer, congratulations, you scored the priceless prize of being the most informed person around the Braai place. Don't forget to hit like, follow, and subscribe. That way you'll be notified of all of our next editions. We've got one more this week. Stay tuned. And did you see there's a potential announcement from a possible next DA leader candidate, Jordan Hill-Lewis, expected later this week? We'll keep you informed as and when we get news of that imminent announcement. My name's Graeme, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll always have the lead.